It is March 5th, 2024. It's 7:08 a.m. And so I want you to look at what is impossible light activity. These are two different methods. You're looking at what is concentrated, exceedingly concentrated, and magnified. And this is the case as you're looking at what's the closed door. The door is closed. In the same way, and it's coming through not only through the depths of the apartment, through a closed door and the blinds that are closed in the living room. And this is that concentrated light. This is the engineered light that fills the property. Okay. So it's not only in the private space. This is the mass sex offense that the entity is engaging in. They molest the person with this while they're monitoring, while they're engaging in corporate surveillance. They engage in corporate surveillance in any private space. I'm literally in my bed. Okay. And without all my clothes on, this is just what should be personal and private information. It's a matter of public information. And you know that based on the environment, the phenomenon that's inside of your private space, which is it's also the communication of a threat to your life, an ongoing reminder that you have no privacy while you are inside of your private space. It is speaking to the very presence of the entity in your private space. There are levels of violations there, emotionally and psychologically, in addition to what is literally outright the conduct and behavior and the pattern of conduct of the sex offender. That is placing you under surveillance and doing so while you are physically indisposed, while you are engaged in that personal activity, which they maintain corporate knowledge of at all times. And they even do more so, meaning they expand that light. They engage in what is, as you've seen, I'll call them light shows as I expound upon the significance of the engineered light in the private spaces. I speak to what is the demonic while they engage in the criminal elements of monitoring. And this is ongoing monitoring that's occurring. I need you to look at this concentrated light that's reaching through a closed door, a cracked door, through closed blinds. And so this is speaking to the sex offense. And I want to be clear, those that are with children living at the crime scene, and living at the crime scene includes all of those in the zone of relevant position. They are all living in a crime scene. You have the maintenance of an unnatural environment for a criminal purpose. I want you to look at the illumination of light. This is the engineered light yesterday, actually that engineered light through the door, you see the concentrated light that moves across the carpet and onto that wall over there, but it was reflecting. This is engineered light that was appearing even on this wall. I took pictures of that yesterday. This engineered light is what covers this property. And this is where the entity, as I showed you yesterday, is engaged in ceaseless group stalking. You can go back and count all the times that the Los Angeles Police Department engaged in what is crossing path. Crossing path is a demonic behavior of maintaining presence in the path in the engineered light. All of the grounds are covered in engineered light. You also know that this is the method in the morning of touching the surface with engineered light. That's not sunlight. I'm showing you what that is. That's magnified engineered light that's touching all over the surfaces where they are living inside of the venue in relevant position. They're in relevant position to me. All right. As they're walking in and out, as they're driving in and out, as they are across the street, this is all massive monitoring and group stalking by a society. All right. And so I want to be clear, the level of violation, and also speaking for the maintenance of an unnatural environment serving that mass crime. All right. It's perpetrated, it's committed literally by the masses. And it is beyond, again, Alvarado, as I've demonstrated, as I've documented, for purposes of covering a lot of ground at one time. Those in relevant position on Google Drive, and I've documented that Google provides the ability to get the house addresses of all of them are in relevant position, and they're engaged in the system of monitoring. And that's why you see the evidence of the environment around them. It is to facilitate that ongoing ceaseless engagement in that criminal system. In this behavior, on purpose, maintaining relevant position. The entity is aware of the fact that I'm documenting. That is going for the ongoing prosecution of the people. So the entity is doing this tons and tons of times. I want to be clear, that is in no way a distraction. It is, again, an admission that, first of all, the Los Angeles Police Department is group stalking. Second of all, that the people of the state are group stalking as well. And that the engagement in that criminal system, I want you to understand the system of group stalking is that which is done as a it's in the name of it. It's group conduct. And so while LAPD is providing that evidence against the people of the state, this is what they're engaging in. So while LAPD is engaging in what is crossing path in that specific environment, amplifying helicopter activity, you have the demons that are pacing in traffic on Alvarado. They're driving by, crossing path. That's activity creation that is surrounding me. That is the people of the state that are all in traffic on Glendale Boulevard. I need you to understand how massive this is. All of this traffic, it's creating ongoing activity in the specific environment. This is massive group stalking and monitoring that's going on, and they are all engaging in targeting one person. All right, so I'm exposing to you what the entity is doing, and while the Los Angeles Police Department provides ongoing evidence that is going for the prosecution of the people, the Los Angeles Police Department in and of itself is going to cease to exist. This is serving for the prosecution of the people because you're understanding what is that conspiracy. The entity intended at the outset to try to protect them. I want to also be clear, the body of evidence that is already in existence, speaking to what is not, first of all, the demon possession of the people of the state, fully exposed. All right, engaging in a pattern. In the same way, the masses that are in traffic on the freeway on Glendale Boulevard, that is the level of monitoring that I documented already. And I mean, there is absolutely no exception to the demonic behavior that the people of the state exhibited while they were molesting and terrorizing with engineered light that coexisted with merely their car driving in traffic past me. So that means this engineered light that you see all over the sidewalk, all over the buildings, inside of my apartment, this impossible light activity, the demon possessed engage in crossing your path in concert with what is this engineered light that would drag across the surfaces, drag across the concrete, drag across the road. You saw Amazon Prime engage in that act in the parking lot before. The African male was driving the Amazon Prime vehicle. Los Angeles Police Department were engaging in the demonic act of flying in a circle. They were pacing. And Amazon Prime was documented engaging the criminal elements of monitoring. And as they drove in the parking lot, the impossible light activity was on the asphalt. That has nothing to do with the placement of the light source. It is a demonic act. The demon possessed, like I said, this is what group stalking is. The demon possessed cross your path, and they do so with the coexistence of this engineered light. This is what you saw, the similar to the access services that came engaging in the pattern of conduct yesterday with the minor child and with the Asian male that got out with the Asian female that got out of the access. That was all the pattern of conduct, and the engineered light was all over this building. Just like this is just another iteration, in the same way that this is just another iteration of the same maintenance of engineered light. The entity is engaging in maintaining engineered light at all times. You're looking at nothing other than a method of maintaining that engineered light while demons cross your path. So how are they doing it here in a stationary manner? All of the property is covered in engineered light, and then you have the demons that are just walking all around. Okay, they live here in the environment. They're even inside creating activity. It's just like this, Exhibit A, all right? And he's going to be deported. That's 1818, number 1. The entity is engaging in what is a systematic means of group stalking. And I want to be clear, the people's method of group stalking. And you saw the state directly stalking in a helicopter, utilizing what they have at their disposal in the specific environment, which is serving for its systematic means of monitoring and group stalking. And it's massive. So everyone on Glendale Boulevard, just so Glendale Boulevard is right out here off of Alvarado and 17th Street. And it's massive monitoring. And by the way, the light source does not remain at Alvarado Gardens for 12 hours like I documented yesterday, and as I've been documenting day in and day out. The entity, as you've seen inside of my documentation that I captured in the Inland Empire, there is no sun that's over Alvarado Gardens or any light that would appear. I want you to pay attention to how rapidly that disappeared. It would never occur under any circumstances, but understand how rapidly it disappeared. That has nothing to do with the sun, okay? That's not sunlight. You're going to pay attention to how rapidly, like I stated, the directed light changes very rapidly, but the light source doesn't go anywhere whatsoever. And the placement of this light source on the building has nothing to do with the presence of that light source. In the same way that you've seen inside of my room, you have directed light while the sun is on the opposite side of the apartment. It's outside of my living room window. So in other words, there's shade over here. But I have documented plenty of times, and this is engineered light as well, but the concentrated presence of engineered light, the pattern of the blinds on the walls, on multiple walls, all right, and including on the ceiling, when there is, none of that is an explanation for, because obviously you know that that's not sunlight, but the other point is that you're understanding how it has nothing to do with the presence of the light source at all. It has nothing to do with that. The presence of the light source is a hallmark. It is an unintelligent, guys, upon the ordinary person's observation. Oh, the sun is here, and the ordinary person isn't even paying attention or thinking about how the natural environment works. From 6:30 in the morning until 5 p.m. Understand, I stood outside of my office, and that light source was in perfect alignment with the office, aiming light on the same exact property. Whereas we have one sun, and you've got people that are on the East Coast and in the South, like I used Florida as an example. They're 3 hours ahead of us. So right now it's 10:18 in Florida. The light source is aiming, this is supposedly sunlight. So you're going to use their unintelligent example. If this is sunlight, you're speaking to what is very close proximity of the light source. The entity engages in, this is sunlight, because the light source, as you can see it clearly outside of my living room window, but yet 3 hours ahead, you have in the state of Florida, it's a sunny day. They're looking at a light source in their sky space. All right. And the entity is engaging in that's crossing path. The entity is engaging in what is the maintenance of a light source, and it has nothing to do with the operation of the natural environment. Not only is this not a light source that is seen anywhere in the sky space in Florida, okay, but is also speaking to, it's not over the Vons on Alvarado Street. The Vons that I've shopped at that Vons many times, but there's an Arco gas station. The light source is nowhere near that. And you see that, you're looking at the sky space that's over those venues in this direction. The pattern of conduct is, even after I document the maintenance of that light source for an excess of 12 hours, this is how I was able to capture what is beyond natural, what is the phenomenon. The entity will engage in keeping a light source at one address in alignment to me for the duration of the day. And then when I totally abandon that address, that location, the light source, out of conformity with what is clearly captured, there's no sun that's over the Ovid Family Community Library. The Ovid Family Community Library is east of Los Angeles. The entity is present in Los Angeles in alignment to my living room window, aiming light into the depths of my apartment, which is now appearing again. Again, that wouldn't even be sunlight. That's concentrated light. It's absolutely impossible, but it's also speaking to what's even out of conformity with what's natural, with what is nature, the operation of the environment, excuse me. So you have what is Los Angeles, which is west of the Ontario, California. So this is all a matter of speaking to geographically. This is also a matter of what you can see with your own eyes. There's no sun in this direction. It's on the opposite side of my apartment. You're looking at the light activity that's suggesting that. But then when I move that light source, just like you saw when I documented the people of the state on Alvarado Street and 17th Street, that light source totally abandoned its maintained presence on the property beside 1810, and you saw that light source right over my head at in the middle of Alvarado Street, where I was documenting the people of the state who are going to federal prison while they were crossing path, and the light source remained over my head, and the Los Angeles Police Department flew right over my head over Alvarado Street, not over the property of Alvarado Gardens. Okay, this is what the entity engages in. It has nothing to do with the natural environment, and the light source remains over me where I go. So the entity, and outside of norms, what you're looking outside of the normal operation of the environment, because what you're looking at here, you're looking at the sky space over here. Clearly there is no sun over there, and there's no confusion. If I was, by the way, on the opposite side, so in that distance over there, looking over here, you would see the light source that is over here in the same way that I'm looking over there, and the light source isn't over there. You have what is the maintenance of a light source, just like the demon possessed to engaging in what is maintaining presence in your path in the engineered light. That light source, while the entity is doing this is group stalking. All right. Instead of doing it with one person doing this, you have a group. And they are all present, driving cars, driving public transportation, living in relevant position in the engineered light. And while you are in motion or while you are stationary, they are maintaining presence all around you in the engineered light. This is how the demon possessed are accomplishing this. And while they're doing this, the light source remains directly over the targeted individual for the duration of the day. And outside of, and that will be documented, outside of what is already well established, the sun is nowhere near in this direction. It's not over Arco, it's not over Vons or any of the McDonald's, the Starbucks, none of that over there. And that's been the case as I'm showing you literally as I walk out of my office, and the Los Angeles Police Department are in video flying in circles, crossing path while the hovering light source is directly over the apartment building that I'm standing by. And then you'll have, when I go to Arco, that light source will be directly over the Arco gas station. It'll be over me. It'll be directly over that Starbucks or whatever venue. And you clearly are seeing what, and that's just an example of what is following with the light source. But while you see what is following with the light source, you will pay attention. The directed light that you see, it has nothing to do with the light source. They are two separate methods of stalking with light while outwardly creating the illusion as though this is the natural environment. So that's what I want to break down to you. Nature is dictating the fact that in Florida, it's 3 hours ahead and it's 10:23 a.m. in Florida. But the light source is present outside of my apartment. The light source is nothing other than a means of maintaining light. The light source that is aiming light, concentrated light, that is, again, changing in size, piercing through what is a closed door, concentrated to the degree that it's reaching into the depths of the apartment and up to the heights of the wall. Pay attention to that engineered light. That's engineered light up there. Okay, and what is the, and I'll step into it so you can see. This is my magnified shadow. This is all engineered light. The concentrated light that you are looking at is nothing other than another method. There are layers and levels of engineered light. Those are the blinds magnified in size. The blinds are closed. They're closed in an upward position as well. And at nightfall, these blinds are appearing on the ceiling. The appearance of that light, it's nothing other than another method of keeping my private space filled with what is engineered light, having nothing to do with what are lamps on the ground, in the same way that this engineered light has nothing to do with what is sunlight. And while the documentation has already established that that which is not the sun remains present over 408 West G Street, apartment number 51, from the beginning of the day till the end of the day, in the same way that the entity has already established that that which is not possibly the sun, it's the light source in its zenith, in its perfect alignment over me for the duration of the day, it's not possibly, it's not the sun, but that is the light source that remains over the Ovid Family Community Library at Euclid Avenue and Holt Boulevard. None of that is in conformity with what it would ever, first of all, but that's the pattern of conduct. But you're going to go through the analysis. The entity engages in conduct suggesting that this is sunlight and this is the sun. And so in analyzing what is, again, speaking to a pattern of conduct and not the natural environment, you are analyzing it in both ways. First of all, you already know that the sun is not remaining present. It is literally here, and you're going to look at the video of the Los Angeles Police Department group stalking on video at 5 o'clock as I'm exiting my office. And this light source is literally on the opposite side of this apartment building, aiming light onto the same exact property. Okay, so right now it's aiming light toward this apartment at 5 p.m. It's aiming light toward the opposite side of this apartment. In other words, from that direction, this direction. All right, and the entity is doing so. It's 7:25, so 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 10 hours from now, and this light source is at the same property. Okay, so that's the pattern of conduct, because while you are looking at that and you already know that that's not the sun, and you also know that this isn't sunlight. That's not sunlight. That's not sunlight. That is magnified light reaching into the depths through the closed blinds, through a closed door, and it is also appearing on the heights. It's going up to the heights of the wall. That's not sunlight. That's the pattern of conduct. That's the light that bounces off of windows and creates the image of that window at a grand distance that just so happens to touch my person. All right, it creates shadows. That's some powerful light. That's not sunlight. Okay, that's the P.O.C. And you are also going to, since you know that this is not sunlight and you know that it's not possibly the sun, you're also remembering, which is one aspect of an analysis. The other aspect is that you're going to use their asininity against them. And by them, I mean the demon possessed. They're surrounded by the evidence of what they engaged in. Not only is that not the operation of the natural environment, meaning it's not the sun and it's not sunlight, but also the entity suggested that the sun remains over so many venues that I documented, including the Pomona train station. Let's just say the Pomona train station, which I traveled to and from that train station for purposes of documentation. And so while I am there and en route before sunrise, documenting the presence of that light source as it remained in perfect alignment with me on public transportation, keeping this light source in motion. This light source is in motion, maintaining central presence through the windows of vehicles that I remain in. I captured video of that while I'm in Chino, California, maintaining the central presence in the window over me, complete with engineered light on the buses, okay? While the entity is keeping the light source in perfect alignment with me while I am in anybody's vehicle, and most of the time it was Tracy Banks, third-party group stalker Tracy Banks, no matter where I was located. So for example, in the vehicle of Tracy Banks going from her apartment at Woodside Senior Apartments at 408 West G Street, where the light source is directly over her apartment in the morning, just so you can see that, over her apartment in the morning. By the way, while that is the case, there would be no sun that you would even see here. Okay, and so that's how you're then going through and analyzing based on the venues. speaking to what is in a natural environment. You also know that because no, the sun is not going to be present at the same address, which is exactly what it is after 5 p.m. But it's also not possibly the sun, which means that it would never ever be the case if that's the sun that was documented remaining present in Ontario, California. And that's why you captured on video. That's why you captured in images. And there's no mistake about it. It was definitely there and aiming what was, again, not sunlight, but aiming its light all into the, all over the inside and all around where you're at. It's speaking to very close presence. It's hovering. All right. So you're not only analyzing based on nature, but you're analyzing based on comparison of other venues. There's a whole body of evidence speaking to the fact that the sun and no sunlight would ever result based on the pre-existing presence of a light source, and that's just not for a single moment. I have gone through and created documentation at all times of at all times of the year, so spring, fall, summer, winter, and I also included the fact that the duration of time, and I mean, I would go to venues from the beginning of the day in order to capture what is starting the day, and it was rising while I was at the Ontario Town Square on Euclid Avenue in Ontario, California, 91762. And while it was present rising, I would stay there at the Ontario Town Square, and it would set in alignment to me at the Ontario Town Square. The Ontario Town Square, Ontario Ovid Family Community Library, as I walked toward that Ovid Family Community Library, then it would remain over the entrance, very, very specific location to be in its zenith over the top of my head, seen through the elevator window, that is through the ceiling. You're talking about very precise. What you could see through the ceiling of that library is not visible over anywhere in Los Angeles, let alone Alvarado Gardens. So like I said, this is documentation that already exists. So there is no mistaking about what is the venue where the Los Angeles Police Department are providing evidence against itself and against the people. The people of the state are in a very specific environment, and it's a phenomenon. Just like I documented yesterday at 12:37 p.m., speaking to the exact same time where I'm in an entirely different location, Ontario, California, apartment number 51, zip code 91762, versus being at 1810 North Alvarado Street, standing beside the building 1810, where you see that light source hovering, but you'll see at the same time, in two totally different locations, the same presence in its zenith over the top of my head. That is impossible. All right, the entity is engaging in conduct suggesting that the sun is maintaining a zenith presence over everyone at the same time. Not only is that not the case, not only is that not nature, not sunrise, not the behavior of the sun or the natural environment, because again, in Florida, they are not seeing what's occurring inside of my living room window. But yet in Florida, they're looking at the sun in the sky. But what I'm looking at here, we're not looking at the same sky space. It's impossible. And not only that, they're never getting any sun, by the way, if this was the sun, because it stays here at Alvarado Gardens, aiming light even to my apartment. Even 8 hours from now, the sun's not going anywhere, okay? But like I said, not only is that not the natural environment that the maintenance of the light source and it's remaining in its zenith, both here and at 1810 North Alvarado Street, while I stand beside that building at Alvarado Gardens in the zip code 90026, and also at the same time at 12:38, as I documented in Ontario, in part outside of apartment number 51, the front door of apartment number 51 with the zip code 91762 in Ontario. Remember, at both addresses, the entity is maintaining this light source that for the duration of the day, from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, and you have the pattern of these law enforcement agencies who maintain ongoing constant presence while that phenomenon is occurring. This is a pattern, and this is a phenomenon that is clearly outside of the range of normalcy. That's not the natural operation of the environment. But not only do you have that pattern, which is beyond a coincidence, by the way, that in and of itself is probative of what I've been speaking to. But you have what is outside of the operation of the natural environment, but you also have what is the presence of the light source in any other location. So like I said, while you have it maintaining in its zenith over my head in Ontario, and I'm documenting in 2024, it's in that same position, hovering over in my head in its zenith at the same time in Los Angeles, California. No, that is not what is happening with everyone else. The sun is maintaining a zenith presence over everyone's head. So with the target, if there's no targeted individual, then everybody's experiencing that at the same time everywhere, no matter where you're at. First of all, you already know that that's not the case, okay? But second of all, why is that not the case? Because the sun is in constant movement. The sun does not remain stationary at one place. So where the sun is rising, it's not setting there. Rises in the east and sets in the west. Doesn't rise on the east side of building 1806 and and set on the west side of building 1806. That's not the sun. All right, but this is what the entity engages in. And the police are stalking in that environment. And it is stalking. It's not normal presence. It's the maintenance of a specific environment, which is a phenomenon. And their being present there is stalking. All right, and it's supposed to be covert. It's supposed to be, what's supposed to be covert are the people of the state. The people of the state are supposed to be covert. The presence of the law enforcement agencies, they intend to threaten. They intend to threaten, especially as you speak to what is the ordinary target individual's sense that something weird is going on. People are following them and they don't even know these people. They might not even be able to explain, oh, but you can identify the environment that's around them. And there's people that have that gut instinct, not saying that there are not instances of mental illness and genuine paranoia. But I want to be clear, the entity falsely assumes that mental illness is a defense or disproves the existence of federal group stalking and monitoring, and it doesn't. Because you can actually have both a mental illness and be subject to federal group stalking and monitoring. I want to remind you of that. Federal group stalking and monitoring is established by facts. All right, not the defamation of any person or what their experience is. It's actually legally irrelevant when you're prosecuting the case of federal group stalking and monitoring against a public entity. There is no maintenance of a light source. You can engage in the same exact pattern of conduct against somebody who suffers from some mental incapacity. And you also want to be clear and make sure that they're not diagnosed by some minion, a state actor that's engaged in criminal defamation. There's a lot going on there. But anyway, the entity engages in what is the maintenance in its zenith over everyone's, suggesting that it's over everyone's head. And that's not the case, because in the same way that you're looking at the light source that is right here outside of the living room window, it is clearly not over the Vaughn's parking lot, all right, which is in the total opposite direction. It's clearly not in that direction. If it's not even in that direction, because you have to be facing that. It's not in that direction anywhere. It's in this direction, aiming light in this direction. The entity engages in moving as I move. I've shown you that in real-time video. As I move, this light source hovers in real time. It's very, very demonic. It's very disturbing. When I've shown you that. But anyway, this is what the entity is doing while I'm inside of any vehicle, maintaining central presence in motion. And while I maintain stationary presence, that's what it's doing, maintaining stationary presence and engaging in, I'm going to use this, maintaining stationary presence. And so the sun is rising up on this side of me, remaining over me all day long. And then what is then setting? And I put that in air quotes because you know that the sun is not present over one person, over one environment all day. This is the pattern of conduct though. It's rising on one side, remaining all day for the duration of the day. And as you're talking about 8 o'clock in the morning, this is what it's doing. For the duration of the day. It's staying right here for the duration of the day. And then the last few hours of the day, then it's rapidly setting. That's what you're seeing in the morning. It's remaining for a rapid amount of the time. It's rising in the morning, rapidly getting to this part to being over, and it's staying right here for the duration of the day, right here. For the large chunk of the day, it's remaining right over, which is stalking in the path with light. This is the path directly over the target individual. For the duration of the day, this is not the sun. And this is not the shared experience of everyone everywhere either. The sun is in constant motion. And so if the sun is rising at 6 o'clock in the morning, you're talking about constant motion. And by, let's say, 8 o'clock in the morning, the sun is gone. The sun is gone, okay? The sun is not staying over one person or in the vicinity of one person all day long. That's the pattern of conduct. And while the entity is maintaining presence, that it's hovering in its light source and aiming what is directed light, which is, you know, that's not sunlight. It has nothing to do actually with the placement of this light source. The light source is supposed to be the form for why you see light. But all you gotta do is pay attention to that light that creates multiple shadows and is magnified in size. It does things like appear in the shade out of nowhere, and does things like appear on ceilings, and you are paying attention and noticing, yeah, no, that's not sunlight. And then you're looking up and say, well, you know what, actually the sun does not stay present for the duration of the day. And also, while it's staying present over this venue for the duration of the day, what about what was already documented and in a totally different location? For example, at 408 West G Street, where at the same time, it's a totally different location. And what you see at Ontario apartment number 51, you are not seeing at what is 90026 of building 1810, just to give you an example. In the same way, my point being is that this is not the experience, the light source being over one person, being over everyone in this position, no matter where you're at. because that's not what's going on in Florida. We are not in the same position. The sun is not some hovering, universally seen. No, the sun is in constant motion. All right, and this is what we've learned. I'm not dictating something. This is the way that this is what we've been told about the operation of the natural environment. And you also know that because while the light source remains stationary over me, which is the pattern of conduct, the entity they're moving all around me. They're engaging in this. These are demons that are surrounding while the entity keeps the engineered light and the light source over me. The demon possessed are in relevant position doing this, group stalking. They're psychopaths, they're the demon possessed, and they're group stalking you while you're in that environment. And I want to be clear, while the light source remains over the targeted individual, they are going off, and the light source is not remaining in its central place, in its zenith over them. It remains over the targeted individual, which again is stating this exact same thing. What's happening while I'm here at in my office or in my apartment, or what you see out the living room window, is not what is occurring while you're at the Arco gas station. And that's it's a matter of common sense. You already know that it's in a totally different direction. Nobody's a fool, and it's not looking like from Arco, they would be looking in the distance toward this location, looking backwards. From here, we in the same way looking toward that Arco, or looking toward Ontario, in other words, okay? So what's happening here is not happening above the doorway, beside the doorway, anywhere near Ontario, California. But I have a body of evidence showing what the entity was doing in a specific environment and who was doing it as well. So that's the significance of what the entities, their practice with this environment. And so every time that I'm capturing video, you have what is an ongoing admission by a corrupt law enforcement agency. And they are literally defenseless. And so what they have analytically, when you're prosecuting, that's going to be used against the people of the state who are engaged in a criminal conspiracy to engage in group stalking and monitoring. But right now, on this side of that federal prosecution, the Los Angeles Police Department continues to provide evidence against the people of the state who are going to be prosecuted for engaging in group stalking and monitoring. And that's why you maintain a universe like this, which is totally out of the norms of nature. All right, the magnification of light, which is speaking to, oh, this is the sun, and so this is sunlight, because that's the false logic that they exercise. And if this is the sun and that's the sunlight, then it's impossible that that was any sunlight that would appear inside of apartment 51, which I documented occurred at all times of the day. Again, not sunlight, while the sun, by the way, was above the apartment building. And so sunlight is not, the sun that's above the apartment building is not then aiming light on a downward trajectory and then somehow at an angle going inside, reaching behind doors and all that. All of that is impossible light, which is exactly what this is, impossible light. It's the pattern of coexisting with the maintenance of the light source. All right, and the maintenance of engineered light, and this light has nothing to do with the presence of that light source. You already know that. The entity is maintaining engineered light, magnified in size. This is just a layer. This is one layer. This is another layer, and you're supposed to be deceived, not paying attention to any of that. All right, so the entity is maintaining methods of engineered light at all times. And so this is what is the pattern of conduct. And that, again, 408 West G Street is nothing other than one example of what is an impossible occurrence, meaning outside of nature. It is the phenomenon, it's the specific environment, and you can compare these specific environments to each other. Not only can you isolate the universe and just look at it for where it's at, in other words, Alvarado Gardens, my apartment, the direction that my window is in, where you're seeing the light source aiming through, and you already are analyzing what this is not ordinary light and all the ways and all the things that this light does, and all the fact that it occurs even when there is no light source visible, all right, and it's clearly appearing on all the walls. Yeah, that has nothing to do with sunlight. The entity is engaging in, and that has nothing to do with what is ordinary reflection. Sunlight is not engaging in what is bouncing off of windows and then creating multiple shadows all over the place. That is not sunlight. That's not a normal reflection of sunlight. That is not. Okay, so the entity engages in this on a routine basis, even outside of the presence of the light source. You have what is the comparison of the specific venues, which when you make that comparison, is speaking to what's the impossible, and what's occurring at that venue is speaking to the pattern of conduct. Then you're also isolating the specific the specific environment. So here at Alvarado Gardens, where the entity is maintaining a light source outside of terms of what nature would be, and the behavior of the light, which has nothing to do with sunlight. And the presence in that environment, that specifically maintained environment, serves a satanic and criminal purpose. That satanic aspect is going to be used as the means of prosecuting for terrorism, even though it's terrorism to engage in group stalking altogether. But these aren't just weirdos who are obsessed that are group stalking you. These are the demon possessed, and everything that they employ to engage in this criminal system is satanic at its core. This is how you get things such as shadows on ceilings. That's demonic. How you have multiple shadows when I'm walking outside and on the sidewalk and you see my shadow in front all around, that's demonic. It's impossible light activity. Normal lights do not create multiple shadows like that. That's the engineered light that's present all over the grounds, and this is the engineered light that's present all over the grounds during the day, all over the surfaces, having nothing to do with the light source. The whole environment is engaging in what is the maintenance of a specific environment that ordinary people are ignorant of. You're not paying attention to it. I'm pointing out the environment around you, showing you how this is not the natural environment, first of all. And second of all, what you see, the illusions that you're looking at, thinking that that's the sun, and then you're just assuming that this is sunlight, not only is it not the natural environment, it actually has nothing to do with what you see. The maintenance of what I have termed engineered light, it covers everything. It's demonic at its core. So there are things that are inexplicable. And that which is inexplicable, I am showing you that it's occurring in real life. So you're witnessing it. I'm not saying, oh, something is happening and then you're not seeing what's happening. All right. That's not something that you can prosecute. You can prosecute because of the environment that you see with your own eyes. Light, artificial light, and sunlight does not create foreshadows all around you. All right, natural sunlight does not bounce off of objects and then create that object appearing at a great distance away, which just so happens to be touching all over the person that is claiming to be followed by strangers. Group stalking, that's stalking with light. That's demonic also. It's also the sex offense. The entity likes to molest the person with engineered light, violate the person on a systematic basis. It's serving a specific system. So I want to be clear, that which is inexplicable. Okay, it's inexplicable how you have what is this engineered light, but it's all over the place day and night. The artificial light is not an explanation, and the sun is not an explanation, but it is revealing what is the supernatural, what is the demonic, and it surrounds. It surrounds. And by showing you